And welcome here to the Aegis Defenders League. Once again, we are in week number 3 as we are hitting the high point of the season. And of course, in the regular split, that now means you are playing for playoff contention. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Orbital. With me is, of course, Jordan Butt, and we will be your casters for this evening. Jordan, how you doing today?
Super excited. We got a new patch. We got a whole new game. We get to find out if all of our comp players have migrated to Swarm or if they're taking the APL to the utmost seriousness. So I'm excited to see what happens tonight.
I know. Listen, Swarm is fun and all, but sometimes you got to make sure where your head is supposed to be. And this is the time to do so because both of these squads are currently sitting at 1-1, meaning they are on the brink of elimination. And this game could be that mainstay one. Remember, if you want a solid run at a playoff spot, you need at least 2 wins under your belt. And honestly, if you win tonight and next week, then you are solidified in with a 3 record. So at the current moment, we are looking at Dorado Gaming Row and Conduit eSports Phoenix, 2 teams that, again, need to take a little bit of time, maybe step back and get back to the drawing board.
Yep, no, I couldn't agree more. This is it's actually a very pivotal moment that Riot comes out with a for fun mode at the same time that a massive meta shift is happening. A lot of these meta junglers, those AP clearers that were just speed running the jungle and then paired with an 80 carry mid, that has definitely shifted down in power. Some players are saying ADCs are still broken, just got to find the ones that work in the mid lane. Other players are going back to their old mage style. So looking at the different styles between these 2 teams is going to be really interesting.
It's going to be very interesting, and we do want to watch for a little bit more of Dorado Gaming Row. A full squad came in at the level cap, Emerald 4 on all of them, and you know, for them it's a little bit interesting. They won the previous series 1-1 situation with a 3-2 game score, so a little bit more games played under their belt. It is Vang and Bill, Just Cooper, Nightmare, Kills, and Barolo rounding out their team.
Yeah, and what I could tell from sort of their previous game sets is they like to play very aggressive in the bottom lane, and they rely on Cooper on sort of a carry style jungle, with the solo lanes kind of just filling in as that sort of like solid member that can bring a little bit of utility, a little bit of frontline to the table in Billy and Nightmare. So really heavy bot lane focus on this team.
And on the other side, we're taking a look at Conduit eSports Phoenix, a squad that's so far been hot and cold. 1-1, but in both series won either 2-0 or 0-2. So looking maybe for a little bit of a shakeup or continuous streak of 2-0s. Right now it is Dobbs, Nation, Socks to Thighs, Domination, Not So Dark, rounding out the composition here tonight.
Yeah, excited to see what these guys put forth. The thing that I noticed that was very similar between these 2 teams, Nasian loves to play carry jungle picks as well as Cooper there. So carry versus carry jungle matchup is what I'm expecting to see from these 2 teams. Probably mage mid is what these 2 teams have shown in the past, even when the ADCs were meta. And then again, like we said, it's going to be a bit of a fist fight in the bot lane. Not So Dark does have a bit of an interesting champion pool, more of a control style coming out of him to counter what Barolo and Kills are going to be throwing at them in the bot lane tonight.
It's going to be such a toss-up there, and I think for the players themselves, they need to kind of show their stuff here, because remember, when you're in the middle of the pack as well, you have a little bit more to kind of talk about. You have to sit there and go, okay, we need our winner matches here, but we also need to step up our game a little bit further, because you know you're going to be facing off against the likes of what the 1st and 2nd seeds coming out of the other groups. You can't let yourself slack here. So what do you hope to see? Because as much focus as we're putting down to the bottom side, is that where we want to see kind of that shore up, or do we want to see any of the top side also come about? Do we want to see that showing up, or do we want to see, you know, the flexibility that, hey, toss something at the wall and see what sticks?
Yeah, I'm always interested to see if teams can come out with some good like side laners. Depends on what champions people are prioritizing, but here in the APL and between these 2 teams specifically, I'm largely looking towards the team fighting. The team fighting is what's going to define it for me. If these 2 teams can find clean engages, find clean peel, that's the main thing for me.
All right, well, I like it. The players are more than set. They are ready into the draft, and we'll see if they do decide to draft into that team fight style composition. If it is, then that's going to be great. Or if they can mold a composition to their own. Lilia tossed into the ban phase, which understandably sent over to Just Cooper, and then the brand right back. That is a Nation special in there. Same as Not So Dark, sometimes taking that to support.
Yep, absolutely. Pinching some of these AP jungles, they are still very strong despite being knocked down a peg. Ezreal, another great ban there. Super safe AD carry, also a flex pick on this patch.
Mm. And of course, at the current moment, we're just watching them kind of filter through. What do we want to take away? What are some of these power points? And you mentioned the bot lane. Maybe we got to see more bans sent that way, but instead it is that Cassiopeia. Once again, Socks to Thighs has played a very varied champion pool. I think one of the more diverse out of there. Maybe not so much the team fight specifically, but the Akali Diana still in back pocket.
Yeah, Cass is a good pinch ban away from Socks to Thighs. That's one of the mages that's really hard to play and engage support into, as we're seeing the Ivern being pinched away. So I expect to see carry versus carry, but while we're talking about the bottom lane, Jinx is very high prio for specifically Dorado Gaming Row. So is Conduit Phoenix going to look to take that away on the B1, or are they going to do something different?
I mean, I like the fact that you pointed it out because you can see the Ashe ban. Dorado Gaming had a selection of do we want to ban the Ashe or not? And especially with the Ivern ban on the other side, both sides are now thinking, okay, maybe they're pinching that bottom side. Maybe we can't go for a hard scaling ADC like we would really want. So we are going to go for a little bit more safety behind. The Seraphine locked in, one that is a little bit surprising to me from the side of Conduit eSports, but being sent into the bottom lane might not be that bad.
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't think too much about the solidity, like the where that role is going, because Seraphine is a very flexible champion, and we know these teams like to empower their junglers. So if that was for Socks to Thighs, that would not be out of this world of like a different look for them. It could be support, it could be AD carry. We're just gonna have to wait and see, as Graves and maybe even a Varus being picked up on the side of Dorado Gaming. Again, we said it in the pre-show. Carry versus carry jungle matchup is what we're looking for out of these two teams.
I also like the fact that you look for I like the fact that you do see this kind of heavy lockdown in this sense. It's a very burst style. I think we got word a little bit, and we'll have to have it repeated here just to confirm what that Varus pick is. Oh, okay. I believe it is a Volibear locked in here. So maybe not the ADCs just yet. It is going to be that flexibility or that kind of front wall standing. The Graves and the Volibear, both very great dive and move in champions. If they can combine together, though, that'll be the big question.
But just a quick correction, just because Pro Draft is scuffed, we all know this. Draft Ball is currently down as a website. The Graves is actually Varus, so Varus is
there we
the
go.
bot
Okay.
laner selected there on the side of Dorado, just scooping up some playmaking. As we said, the bot lanes are going to be fist fighting, and that is a very early Swain lock on the side of Conduit.
Ooh. So this actually leads me to believe it is a Seraphine Swain bottom lane. This is a very safe lane and also very heavy sustain. So far, just kind of building up their composition from the ground up. However, this does also mean that you are most likely looking for an AD in the mid lane. I really, really worry if you do lock in triple AP, especially in the forefront. So we'll see what they do opt for here. It is going to be Nefiri.
Nefiri. If that is a confirmed lock, we're going to go ahead and analyze it from here, just making sure, because as we know, Pro Draft has its long history of not being so hot. We're getting confirmed that it's actually Bel'Veth in the jungle. We're sorry, what's on your screen is not exactly what is being shown. And Bel'Veth is a premier champion on the side of Conduit. Actually, a steal away. That's one of Cooper's tried and true pocket picks. So going to be taken away. Nasian going to be piloting that one with a Seraphine behind her. That looks very dangerous.
Oh boy, this is going to be very, very interesting to watch, kind of follow through here. All these champions kind of filtering in for us. I'm already liking kind of the empowering factor of these teams, but there we go. The Sylas is now banned away as the team starts shifting towards that top side of the map. The Sylas headed straight towards, I believe, the likes of Dobbs, who plays a pretty mean Sylas we've seen before.
Yeah, so we'll have to see the way these teams are going to round out their compositions. We're looking at a lot of lane control over on the side of Dorado Gaming. They've got the Karma for the lane phase. They've got Varus, that's a very strong laner. This Volibear could be a top jungle flex, but I'd expect to see a mid pick here on R4 on the side of Dorado. Something for Nightmare in the mid lane. He's played a nice way before, but looking, and we see that's pinched away here, but looking at his past, it's just, we're looking at control mages as some of the options, unless something has appeared recently in his champion pool.
Ooh, and the Camille as well. This is very target heavy from both sides, both of them opting into kind of this leniency, I would say, saying, hey, you know, on Dorado Gaming side, we're focused on top side. I would assume this is going to be that blind pick on the top lane. There's an Alawi, which I actually really like. Conduit saying, okay, yeah, we can't let this one go through. We don't want to let the bully go to the top side, especially with the champions that we've locked in so far. And now we got to wait to see what happens. Conduit get one counter pick and one blind pick to their name. If they can make it work, that is great. I think Dorado are going to land in that blind pick top lane unless that Volibear goes up there and you are hoping for a flex pick situation. 3 seconds left here on the pick factor. It's going to be mid lane instead. So really handing over a lot of agency up there.
Yeah, with the amount of wave control coming in on the right side of your screen with the Varus, Karma, Victor, you've got a lot of lane priority to play for. Victor can be a bit of a lane bully. We kind of forgot about Victor in these previous patches because AD carries have been so dominant, but a solid Victor player can make mid lane an absolute nightmare. So now it's passed on the side of Conduit eSports. What are they going to grab for themselves to answer that Victor? But then also the blind pick in the top lane. Billy's got to find himself. It might be an Aatrox. We are going to want to confirm both those picks, because that would be very niche, very targeted towards aggression on, at least in the mid lane. We'll have to wait and see.
And give it a little bit of time. I'm sure they'll tell us what for. At the same time, I have seen the likes of a Fizz come out, I think, from Socks to Thighs, so I wouldn't put it past them, play a talent and just look like, hey, we're gonna get a little bit crazy. Nocturne at the very end to turn out the lights. Actually really like this call. I love Nocturne. You know, it's always a fun pick at the end of the day, and I think it rounds out a little bit of a dive buddy. It also denies, you know, maybe some of those fights that Conduit eSports are really hoping for. At the current moment though, very fight heavy. I'm not sure if we want to categorize it as team fight though, as both compositions have their pros and cons.
Yep, so we're just getting confirmed on the picks. So the talent on your screen is actually going to be a Diana, and the final pick is Xin. So I have to apologize. The screen will get a lot more clear when we get into game, when we get into the on-screen champion select, because Pro Draft is a nightmare site. We've all been there. So a lot of these picks are mispicks, but let's try and break down what these two compositions are trying to do.
I mean, let's start with Conduit eSports side. This is a team and composition that screams get in the middle of them as much as possible, but the dive is not amazing, to say the least. I mean, you do have that Diana follow through, but after that, you're just kind of, you know, there's not as much catch potential. You're really just hoping the Dorado Gaming Road team kind of comes to you.
Yeah, if I'm reading Conduit's picks properly, again, it's going to get a lot more clear when we get that stuff on screen. But if we've got Diana, and that might be Diana mid, and then if that Neferi on your screen is Bel'Veth, Bel'Veth is in the jungle. So we've got a melee mid lane in this game, so we're looking at a lot of skirmishing, and then any team comp that does have a Seraphine is kind of transformed into a bit of a scaling comp, because the amount of shields like Aatrox with an enchanter behind him now becomes your front line, right? So there's a lot of things that Conduit can do when they're grouped up, or if they find isolated skirmish with Diana, Bel'Veth kind of flying in your screen off the left side, right?
It's just a very interesting factor to watch for. And for Dorado Gaming, in their own vein, we are seeing the likes of a lockdown composition. When you have the Varus in there, it automatically turns, I feel like, any lane into a dangerous zone. You get caught with the chain of corruptions, things go a little bit south, you have the Nocturne to turn the lights out, and all of a sudden one of your carries is dead. Now the swing can dissuade that, but you look at the likes of a Seraphine, and maybe if you catch that Diana out, you can blow up that main target very, very quickly.
Yep, no, I couldn't agree more. So it's going to be on the team fighting of the left side. On the right side, it feels like their first 3 picks, the Varus, Volibear, and Karma, just scream to me lane priority. We want 3 pushing waves, basically. Like they went with the Victor as well. They really value this early game. I don't think any team picking Karma, picking Varus, is looking to just kind of sit back and scale and see what happens. I think this is going to be a very active early game on the side of Dorado. They're going to try and push the pace. And then on the side of Conduit, they've got the melee mid, so they're going to be down push in the mid lane. They're up against the Volibear, right? So it's going to be pretty tough up there. So it's going to be on them to sort of weather a little bit of the storm of what should happen with the early push. And then we'll have to see how these teams are going to play around objectives, because ultimately it's going to come down to, can we see this Seraphine, or is she just going to get blown up?
I don't like hearing the words that a Seraphine is going to get blown up, mostly because you hate to see it when a large chunk of your CC and safety resides on such a squishy character, and you watch that dive come out. You're just like, okay, this is getting worse, this is getting worse, this is terrible, I don't like this. But as you said, the early game is going to be that staple, and we have to focus on that bot lane. You put so much emphasis, and at this point I see two very clear divisive setups. You have that safety, the Swain and the Seraphine, and then the Varus and the Karma on the other side. It's going to be poke heaven on either end. What do you think about this? Does it still lend credit to CPX and Dog R, both of these teams playing towards that bottom lane?
So a big question mark for me, like we've seen Varus Karma time and time again. The play pattern is so easy. Push, poke, fight. Like it's so simple. It's so tried and true. And Conduit on this side of the draft are definitely the cooks inside the kitchen right now. I don't even know who's farming. I would hope that the Swain is farming, because I think he would benefit from the levels and gold income a little bit more than Seraphine. I think she can play an enchanter role in this game, and I'm seeing it get locked in. It's going to be domination piloting that Swain, so some of our questions are already being answered. But the long fight is going to be on that Seraphine just to stay alive. If they can find those explosive team fights, if they can get a bit of a lead, despite the being pushed in some of these lanes, it's going to look really good for their team fight.
And I apologize, I kept saying Nocturne because my brain just likes to see Nocturne. It is the Xin Zhao, still a little dive buddy, but a little bit shorter range, so you know the ability to follow up behind is still there. The rest of the lanes though, I mean, you look at the Diana in that mid lane and the Victor, this one, I mean, hey, it's range versus melee, it's there. The Volibear in the top lane though, the Volibear and the Aatrox specifically, we've seen before be almost a skill matchup, and we've also seen this get out of control in either direction. Do you think that Bel'Veth is going to be that game changer moment? Because just Cooper and Najum, both of them like to fight, and if bottom lane doesn't really work out in their favor, hey, you can head to that top lane.
Yeah, so I'm definitely giving the edge to Dorado in the bottom side of the map. I think this the Varus Karma is just so easy at doing what they do best. And then on the top side, I do see the Volibear obtaining push, but it's carry versus carry in the jungle. And then if we're talking about an early grub fight, which you know Bel'Veth is going to play for, Conduit is bringing a Diana with a fresh level 6 power spike, right? Like that's disgusting. And then on the other side, we've got a Victor, and Victor is not this kind of let's fight, let's do a huge 3v3 skirmish at 6 minutes, right? So I heavily give the edge to Conduit if they can find an organized fight topside around grubs.
I like that call, really taking a look there, and also watching that Bel'Veth, if you get empowered off of these early fights, all of a sudden you take over the game, and CPX are on their way to another series victory. At the same time, for Dorado Gaming, they're looking to do the same with a pretty standardized composition. We'll see if they can pull it off. For right now, though, we are going to go to a quick break to go ahead and tell you a little bit about our sponsor here today, and let you know that you can go ahead and get an edge in some of your competitive games as well. So don't go anywhere. Go ahead and listen to a little bit about our sponsor, and we'll be right back with game number 1 here with the APL week number 3. Don't go anywhere.
Quick shout out to ProComps, our sponsor and a game changer app for the league community. This isn't just like the other tools. It's your personal draft coach, perfect for both teams and solo players. In fact, you can pair it with any other app you use. ProComps stands out with features like custom champion pools, personalized tier lists, and live draft advice. Think of it as having a virtual coach and a strategy toolkit all in one. They offer real-time champion ban recommendations. They already have over 200,000 downloads and thousands of daily users just like you. ProComps is user-friendly and totally free. It is a no-brainer to at least give it a go. Download ProComps now and you'll experience a whole new level of drafting power in your league games. Go to procomps.gg, download it from Overwolf, or click the panel below on our stream.
And we are here ready to go with game number 1, CPX versus Dorado Gaming a row. And of course, for this squad, it's going to be very, very interesting. Conduit eSports, Phoenix hoping to do their best in this matchup. Now, both squads, once again, we said need to get off to a strong start. Both teams currently sitting at 1-1. And in this current instance, if they do not start off with a game 1 victory, it feels like they might lag behind, but both compositions at the current moment have their strengths and weaknesses, and both can bully in a lot of situations.
Yeah, excited to see what these two teams can show us here in game number 1. Dorado sticking to what's kind of worked for them in the past. This is not really a strange composition. They're playing for a lot of lane priority. They're playing a very standard composition. We've seen something like this before. And then on the side of Conduit, who has in the past favored very control frontline heavy supports, has now locked in the Seraphine and a mage bot lane.
And it also lends itself to the triple AP situation where it always feels like even if Belveth or Aatrox get ahead, I always worry just a tiny bit in the back of my head saying triple AP, you're going to lose a lot of power if you don't get ahead in these situations. And I love the fact that you called out Not So Dark, not running that heavy front line, because now a lot of that pressure goes onto the swing, goes onto that Diana, goes onto the Aatrox to step up and be that team fight starter for the team if they can pull it off. At the current moment, though, a little bit of help. Nation goes ahead, gets a little bit of a safety.
Yeah, and a lot of damage right here. Yeah,
so this is what you like.
This is what Karma Virus is really, really good at. I expect this lane to be kind of a nightmare. Like Swain Seraphine offers almost 0 damage in the very limited damage in the poke war and limited wave control. Like if Karma Virus know their job and they can achieve push in this lane matchup, I expect Domination to be very starved of resources, HP, mana, gold. Like he's going to miss a lot of these last hits just because Swain can be a very limiting champion in this early stage up against the Varus Karma. Like Varus Karma, your premier bot lane, we want to get shove, right?
They want to get that power. They want to get that excessive HP damage down and ensure that they control. And at the same time, you knew that Not So Dark and Domination helped out an Asian on that red buff. So you know that the junglers are already moving towards that top side. You got free time to play for. You got plenty of time to go ahead and sit and wait. So it does mean you can do this also very freely with almost no consequence.
Yep. And as we're looking at the jungle path, both junglers are sort of trying to speed run their jungle to the top side of the map. And again, you've got a Aatrox Volibear lane. There is going to be heavy trading in this lane matchup, so both players can opt into lots of aggression. And speaking of aggression, here's Socks and Thighs in the mid lane doing a little bit of taking a run at Nightmare.
But you run out of mana, so already the early ticks with that shielding Nightmare is like, okay, I see what you're doing here. I see what you're trying to do. And it's annoying. Leave me alone. So far, still keeping themselves in a pretty nice spot with the mana set. So Nightmare and Socks to Thighs, both running on empty, just trying to get that early shove. Most likely both going to take that early TP recall and get back to lane.
Yeah, Socks to Thighs sort of playing the sustain war. The end of that trade did not look super, super good because Nightmare is just smashing him with auto attacks. But he is doing okay. You expect to take a bit of a CS loss just being the melee in the mid lane. But what we're going to be looking for are those neutral objectives coming up. I expect Belveth to try and take a chunk out of that one. Socks to Thighs just trying to get information and reveals Just Cooper on the mid lane.
And with that first engagement as well, Just Cooper having to slow down, I would say, a little bit. You say, okay, hey, stop by the mid lane, take a little bit of a detour, which is actually allowing Nation to get a little bit of a jump towards that top lane, which dodging out here as Warlock, denying those tools, flashing away to safety, keeping about 50% HP, still HP lead over to the likes of Dobbs and Nation is going to feel pretty good.
Yeah, if you're Nation, you're super happy with that. You've helped your sort of carry bruiser top lane against the other bruiser top lane. That flash being down is going to mean that Volibear can't take a bite out of the Aatrox there in the top lane. So if anything, Dubs is going to have a much better lane state because of it.
And what you do with that lane state is the big question. Heavy waves shoved towards this top side. Dobbs going to be looking to try and get maybe a plate or two later on if this shove happens again, which will be really, really nice. Nightmare in the mid lane, of course. With these jumps after level 5, you're seeing kind of these tags come down almost consistently from Socks to Thighs, just trying to get the aggression down, try and get their own lead, which is the other side of the coin. If you are a melee champion in the mid lane, generally have some down jumps, you can lay down damage if you play it pretty dang smart. Both top laners though now even up in the HP score, so you know everyone's getting a piece of the pie here.
Yeah, that was a nice trade combination coming in from Walk Warlock, taking a bite out of the Aatrox. Going to go for it again. It's all about landing that E, the storm that comes down. If Volibear can stun on top of it, he wins the trade. That's almost like for sure, right? So this is a good look from both sides, and it looks like Bel'Veth is sort of inching, waiting for that crab to go away to then maybe start an early dragon sneak. Got the bot lane shoved in, and Karma has elected to roam topside, looking for maybe a grub take with the Xin Zhao.
And considering that Walk Warlock is stepping in here for Billy, that substitute coming into play, I think the early start is not out of the question. As you said, Dragon, though, this one feels like it's just the prize at the end of the day. Domination and Not So Dark, I think, had already pushed out and gotten their first recall off. As you said, the grubs are going to be collected as well, as Barolo is going to get some information down, start saying, oh, okay, some of the camps are up. This is standard. We know the dragon just went down. So the even trade and early start to this game going in a very neutral fashion.
Yeah, I'm actually interested that Conduit elected to go for the dragon as opposed to the grubs, because Bel'Veth is the void creature, loves to play for grubs, loves to play for Herald, as it just kind of empowers her quite a lot. But it's a fine decision nonetheless. That Mountain Dragon getting that early is going to be really nice to cut down on that burst damage coming in from the Victor and the Varus as we approach the mid game.
I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time to get there, but of course, in that time frame, Not So Dark, trying to get that last poke, and that might be a danger. 160 gold for your flash. You know, we'll see how the rest of the laning phase pans out. Still, though, you get the plate, you get a start there, and for the time being, the Seraphine is happy.
Yeah, a little bit of we'll call that a calculated risk coming in from Not So Dark. A little bit disconnected because now the Swain is on map and the Seraphine is very far away there. So if Karma and Varus keep slamming these waves, it's gonna be costly, like we talked about. But for now, Domination keeping very competitive in CS. That's really nice to see from the Swain, and we'll see as Nation eyeballing the crab in the bot side, gonna take the smite. Really good for him.
Oh, they're mad. They're mad. Do it to him. Coop. Oh, I was like, come on, pay him back in spades. Not going to happen. That is a little bit of it feels bad considering how quiet this game has gone. Nation just like, yo, I got a one-up on you. I'm going to be annoying and stall out a little bit of that camp count. That would have given Just Cooper, what, a one camp advantage, which isn't that big, obviously, but it's a nice one to have. Topside, though, we're seeing that dive. I didn't realize the kill threat was there, and Dobbs flashing away electricity going to come down from the sky, but no, you are safe, however. No flashes to dive further.
But it's going to solidify him that plate and that flash cooldown, which is going to impact when both teams trade. One side gets grubs, one side gets dragon. It puts more emphasis on the next row of objectives, right? More trading in the mid lane, but this is just going to subside. But yeah, so if Conduit want, they can opt in for that second grub fight, because going up against 6 grubs really enables it sort of opens up a new win condition for Dorado if they're able to get access to some of these turrets. And when you've got these pushing lanes in the Victor and the Varus and the Karma, you're going to have, and the split pushing Volibear, you're going to have access to turrets eventually.
I mean, you already see that 200 gold lead. Yes, it's not a lot now, but it's enabled the likes of Warlock to go back, gather up a pretty big purchase. And not just that, Dobbs realizing that you are without a flash means that you are going to have to play a little bit safer if you don't have jungle help. Cooper now roaming towards that mid lane, getting a larger advantage for Nightmare as well, who is slowly stacking up their advantage. Bot side, the only one where Domination and Not So Dark are sitting there going, hey, we're trying to bait this out. Kills. Of course, seeing that happen and now stepping out says, yo, I know where your jungler is. With everything going down, it is dead even in the gold. No one getting the better of each other. And everyone's just very tense in these movements.
Yeah, it's these game number ones that everyone's just feeling a little bit afraid. Like Nation, if he played the patient, the wave was coming into Conduit. So if they played a little bit patient there, Kills is still bleeding CS. Eventually he might go for a creep, and that's when you take your moment. But maybe thought that he was already spotted out. So elects to abort mission on that one, and he's going to look to contest his own blue buff. Gets a smite again.
Oh, and this is going to be a little bit of dance. Nation is going to be in a 1v2 for a moment. Actually dashes away from Dobbs, and that's going to force the flash out. I feel that was a little bit wonky. If you had played over Dobbs, that might have been a difference. However, this scuttle might enable a battle number 2. Pretty much everyone collapsing in. It is going to be a 4v4. If Socks to Thighs is able to gather up a pretty good jump, that might be it. Tag down. That's a smite. Just Cooper gets away with a scuttle of their own.
Yeah, both teams, the tension is starting to build in this one. It was a 4v3 for the side of Dorado, and then it now is a 4v3 for the side of Conduit. So which team is going to own this grub pit? Nation is missing a lot of HP, so it gets a little bit risky. But if they are able to land their spells, the Wombo combo on the side of Conduit is something to look for. The Diana ult compared with the Seraphine are they going to find it right here?
They're sitting a little bit on a ward, so Just Cooper ensuring that you don't go too far forward. And you can see it there. They know Nation is low, but I don't think they want to force anything. They are going to start it up, though. They're going to try and bait out a little bit more of the ultimates, a little bit more of the abilities, and maybe get something there. This is going to be a slow take. Remember, all you need is one to really get those grublings up and moving, and that's going to be the laser. Allowing Nightmare to poke out the opponent is going to be extremely helpful with one take. You can see they're baiting out. Encore landing on 2, and they're able to do some work. Warlock flashing away. It is going to get to safety, but Just Cooper is now in the tether. The Crescent Guard does nothing, and that's going to be first blood at 11.5 minutes, going the way of CPX.
And what a massive fight that was. Conduit are able to get everything. They're going to get the grubs. They're going to get the kills. And Nation doesn't even go down at the end. Dubs did such a good job to say, you know what? I'm going to pop the ulti early. I'm going to step up and be the front line that my team needs. And Not So Dark, making sure to stay safe in the back. Good layering of the CC. Socks to Thighs getting knocked away during that Diana ultimate. Looked like it was going to be anybody's fight. But again, Conduit just have so many buttons that they can press onto the members of Dorado. Someone is bound to go down.
Of course, with that exchange, you do have to say that the Voidlings are still up and available for Dorado. They were able to gather forward. That's enough to at least get some push. And at this point, if you can gather this dragon for yourselves as well, it wouldn't be awful, to say the least. It would be, you know, negligible that you gave first blood. It'd be there and about. But of course, Nation is stepping over to the other side. It is dark, though, so more just clearing the camps. You don't have control. TP coming in. Nightmare is going to be using that one. So you go ahead and secure a dragon, and Dorado are just like, okay, first fight. We got the objective that we wanted. Secondary kind of sucked, but we got the dragon as well, so let's get back to farming.
Yep. That's a very appropriate exchange from both teams. Both teams kind of aware of what's going on. A lot of CDs were blown on the side of Conduit. Their ultimate has very long cooldowns when we're talking about the Seraphine ult rank 1, Aatrox ulti rank 1. So they were largely on cooldown. So trying to take that as their moment, as we're seeing an all-in in the mid lane.
And that's kind of interesting. Just trying to get those kills, and you get the triple reset. Socks to Thighs showing off a strong affinity with this Diana and saying, yo, Nightmare, you've roamed one too many times. You'll pay for it.
Yeah, that was clean. Nice solo kill coming in from Socks to Thighs, even just on the level 10 mark. As we're seeing maybe some more solo kill action. Dubs is down to basically no HP. Does have the teleport, so he is going to be able to salvage some of that stacked wave, I imagine. But Socks to Thighs getting a very good edge here in this mid lane early on in this one.
And it's starting to turn into a little bit of a battle of the solo laner. Socks to Thighs getting their lead. Now 2 kills up there. At the same time, Warlock, I think matching in pace, able to get 3.5 plates. You're not going to get more than that, but that's a hefty gold chunk in your own. You also want a little bit of that AP dip, which is pretty standard for a Volibear. So moving into the later stages, I do expect Warlock to maybe have a little bit more impact in the fights, especially with how dark this map is.
Yep. He'll be going the standard Rod of Aegis Navori. Oh, but it looks like some face-checking members. Got to be careful.
And you don't like to see it. You both got to scatter, but a flash from Cooper means you got the kill, and Nation isn't there to compete on that Herald. Socks to Thighs having to flash as well as you're roaming to help out, but that's going to give massive Herald pressure over to the side of Dorado.
Yep, Dorado going to be victorious this round on the top side. We've got a very close game number 1, and something we haven't really been highlighting to at all is what's going on in this bot lane. We thought this bot lane was going to be an absolute fist fight. One side opts into for the Swain Seraphine, the more scaling side of things, and Killa and Barolo opting in for the lane dominant style. Domination is absolutely up. 20 CS. Completed item, doing great down here in this 1v1. So he's quietly getting his own advantage, largely left to his own devices.
It's just both teams feel, I think at least, they're feeling like they can wait towards the mid to late. And honestly, it's not bad. It just means the early game is not as exciting as we sometimes wish. Sucks the Thighs is making exciting. 1, 2, 3 on the CS count and looking to try and blow up some opponents, and maybe in the solo 1v1 again. Nightmare, I'm pretty sure, is maxing out that Q as fast as possible. Just like, I gotta get that safety. And having the Blackfire Torch, if you can tag, means you are starting to win some of these elongated one trades.
Yeah, I always am surprised in the APL when we see such deep champion pools. It makes me think, like, with some of the rank requirements in the league, it makes me think, oh, like, are you really mastery? Do you have mastery over your champion? Because Sox the Thighs is really known for the Victor, the Cassiopeia, the Talias of the world, and piloting this Diana, he's doing a fantastic job. A control mage player going to more of an assassin style is not something we typically see as such a smooth transition, but here he goes. Volibear going to do a full 360, driving the Herald into that tier 2, gonna get some split push action, but is he in trouble up the top lane?
Oh, gets a flash, but unfortunately you only have the Sky Lord. It's not really going to do enough, though. You are going to get a Chaos Storm down with a Stasis Field, but it's only going to do minimal damage. So good revenge coming out of CPX. You still lost a lot top lane advantage, though, and that's what Warlock's going to be happy about.
It's really funny. Warlock hopped in the Herald and it looked like he was going to drive it away. And it's almost like the Herald decided, like, this is not a good decision for you. And then he does the full 360, crashes into the turret, trades half the tower HP for his life, which he would say is not really worth, loses the ult, loses the flash. Kind of the worst case scenario for him. You got to be careful when you hop in that Herald, because it does make you a bit of an engaged target, because you are essentially stun locked when you're popping out of that.
It's just painful. You go ahead and, oh, yep, I'm stuck. This now means that you're not going to have that ultimate up for this dragon. It is going to be a 5v5, though. You can see everyone kind of corralling around. And for CPX, who have gotten back in kills, and the gold lead is pretty much dead even, this is the time that we are going to see their composition, I think, fully come online. Domination, as we stated, has not left that bottom lane. If there is a time to kind of explode under the rift, it's now.
Yep, you see a lot of summoners and a lot of ultimates available on both sides, so this is going to be a contention, and I really like what Dorado's doing here, running to the mid lane and establishing another point of pressure, sort of daring the Conduits to make a bit of a misstep or a misplay, but it looks like they're all inning on this third dragon.
And for this one, it's going to be a test. No one really seeing Just Cooper, realizes now that it's almost down, tags over the wall, doesn't get the smite fight, but instead brings out the fight. Just Cooper might be the sacrificial lamb, and they are, but the laser is going to come out, and in goes Domination. Huge encore is going to drag one more in, and are they going to save him? I don't think so. Dorado realizes they're in a really bad spot now. Multiple flashes out to stay alive, and yes, the dragon went down. CPX say they want a little bit more, dragging the mirror back in. It's hunting season, as that's going to be another 3 kills and a dragon with none lost on your side. CPX take that and some.
Yeah, the only misstep we've saw in this game was Nation just trying to face check the Herald, but throughout this entire game so far, we've seen that Conduit is one step ahead of their opponents when it comes to organized team fighting, and that's what we were talking about. If the Not So Dark can pilot this Seraphine safe in the backline, he transforms this Aatrox and this Bel'Veth into sort of an unkillable demon, and that doesn't even go to show. Domination went absolutely crazy in that fight on the Swain. Tons of DPS, and hit the last never move, I'm gonna call it, little hook on Swain's ability there on Warlock to get the little bit of extra there, and you're seeing a 2.5k gold lead on the top of your screen. Dragon on the side of Conduit, so everything right now is pointing to the side of the blue team.
It just feels so good. I think for the squad, they took their time. They said, hey, we're scaling up. We haven't moved Domination out from that lane matchup. It is time to pay your due diligence, and you make it work. Now, that is only one team fight. We have to be honest, there's more to play, but it sets a great precedent that Dorado realized that they may not be the big fish in the sea anymore. You need to start kind of reining in and realizing we got to find our pick potential. And one of those might be on this bottom lane. Just Cooper trying to come down, help walk Warlock, who sitting on an 0-2-0 situation had a little bit of an advantage on the top side, but has since kind of faltered. You're trying to get back in a solid position as well. And if you get the split push up and going, I think the Volibear is a great addition. But at this point, it is that situation of Dorado need to start finding wins for themselves.
Yep, no, I couldn't agree more. Always feels good as Walk Warlock. You got that Rod of Aegis ticking and ticking and ticking, and then you've got the Navori Quick Blade Spike to look forward to. So it's just going to be a question, can they find some winning combinations for them? They've been largely, this Varus Karma lane has been losing. That's been a unsung story of this game. Like, Domination absolutely killing it in this matchup, showing a lot of good mastery over the Swain. He's absolutely online right now. So again, you got to look for a pressure point. Is it going to be protective around Nightmare? Because now that the mid laners are sort of kicked out of their home of the mid lane, Diana is a little bit more equipped to side lane than the Victor. So as we're seeing, and all in the top lane, here we go.
Top lane in the bottom lane, mid lane in the bottom lane, flash out by Sox's Thighs, realizing that maybe you don't want this one. You've expended all your abilities and maybe you get the cooldowns available, but the bops on the back of the head by the pause does too much. Walk Warlock with that Rod of Aegis, as he said, plus a little bit of attack speed, is going to bring so much more to the table. Nation, of course, in the mid lane, making sure Domination stays safe, but the 1v1 power coming out of Walk Warlock is going to yield results.
Yeah, that was actually so important because Conduit are in full snowball right now. So if Dorado is able to capitalize on one of the aggressive moves by Conduit, like we just saw with Sox and Thighs getting a little bit over eager there, the Electric Bear is very good at sustaining through those and playing the long fight. So really good bite back there from Dorado to salvage a little bit of this early game, because before this, the house was a little bit on fire.
Only a wee bit. I mean, it's still on fire, but you've doused like the master bedroom so far, which isn't bad. You still need like the living room, the kitchen, and maybe the garden behind it. So, you know, take a little bit of time, see how much further you can go with it, and continue to build it one step at a time. Walk Warlock, of course, hard pushing, saying, okay, we're in a good spot. At least I am, because you have those quick blades like you mentioned. The next dragon will be that telling point. Yes, Baron is on the table, no one wants to play for it. Take a look at the ward coverage. Everyone dropping just every piece of a pink ward, a regular ward, and then some to ensure this Ocean Dragon map does not yield the darkness of death. But Barolo, you are so lucky you didn't get CC'd.
Yeah, that's really careful. Speaking of kitchens, both teams are going to want to throw the kitchen sink and more at this dragon fight because, again, Dorado going up against an Ocean Soul in this game, they are not equipped to deal with the healing coming up from the composition already with the Seraphine, with the Aatrox, and the Swain. So, Conduit, it's team fight time, and Dorado, you're up against the wall in this one.
I think at this point, you're also just wondering how much more vision do you need, or how much more positioning do you need. Walk Warlock goes ahead, clears out that mid lane field. Lasers coming out, Nightmare just trying to land the poke. The shields are just too good, though. And you're taking a look, really, I'm keeping an eye on kills. Where exactly are you going to go? Where are you going to get your advantages? Dragon is already started up, though, as that's a huge jump in. Sox's Eyes forces Nightmare out. This is going to be a chance smite fight. But I don't think Just Cooper wants to go for it. Domination forces him off. Yeah, it's just that simple. And it's going to be a flash away. Encore lands on one. Walk Warlock will pay the price. And it's just going to be that hard collapse. It does so much work. Domination getting slowed. Poked out, though. Good arrow to ensure that no further aggression comes out. Of course, for CPX, you're looking at this Baron next.
Yeah, Conduit is feeling so unbelievably powerful in this game with the Seraphine shields. They're doing such a good job right now controlling the map and playing in a controlled area. This Baron seems like a little bit too much, though.
I mean, it could be a chance. However, the jump over means Kiln's going to get drawn in. They have so much lead potential. And with Zobs in the ascendant form, you just do not care.
Yeah, and that is going to be Conduit turning over to this Baron. It looks like they're going to try. Is Just Cooper going to be able to get access to it to go for a steal attempt? The vision is not quite there on the side of Conduit to deny the steal attempt. Karma is there to provide some pokes, some shields, and maybe some ward coverage to see what this Baron is at. Nightmare going to toss a laser as well to try and dissuade this Baron, but it looks like Conduit are just going to be able to secure this one. Zinzao going over to the camps, can't decide what to do, and Nightmare just gets one shot once again.
It's just that easy at this point. The game has spiraled out of control. The composition that Dorado had built needed a little bit more oomph in the early game. They still have power in the late, but the late game is quickly dwindling. I don't think you'll be able to reach that moment. Dobbs now a level up on this bear is going to duke them out, while Socks to Thighs on this attack speed heavy kind of champion situation, which honestly, in the current situation, it's a wild statement to make. I mean, Socks to Thighs, you see the auto attacks coming out from the passive, feels so good.
Yeah, that's going to feel really good if you're Conduit. So as we take stock of things, we are looking at about a 5k gold lead, and this Baron is almost going to bleed right into the next dragon, and that will be soul points. So Dorado is on a massive timer, and you can tell by the way they're face checking with some of their carry members that they are absolutely feeling desperate in this one. Nightmare held a flank on that dragon fight, gets absolutely blown up, ran at by Socks to Thighs. Very decisive coming out from him, and Nightmare had to flash away from that. The flanking Victor not really working out there. Kills getting absolutely smacked on the opposite side of the Baron wall on the Baron attempt. So it's all coming out Conduit. They are the decisive team in this one.
They're setting themselves up for success. The steamroll is there. Dobbs going into Descendant 4, matching the Skylord, and I don't think Warlock's got it. The slams of the blade are just too strong. However, the heal comes out here, and it's nasty, but in comes Socks to Thighs, says, yo, let me help out. Now on a rampage to match this 4-1 push. Everything on the map will be CPX's, as the Phoenix doesn't need to die to come back in this.
Absolutely, you're completely right. And Dubs there up against the 2 items and a half on the side of the volley barrier. Down half. Oh, here comes more.
Just a nasty engage with that moonfall, drawing them all to death, and it looks like that will be the end, as just Cooper just dies. Nation gathering the souls, domination slowing them all. Socks to Thighs putting the Nightmare to rest and leaving us with a dreamy game 1. This will be Conduit eSports Phoenix taking a decisive game 1, ace at the end. I say that, however, it might be a little bit of a slow burn to take, as Warlock is going to try and run interference, but this is all but over. If the door's not shut now, it's hanging on by a literal hinge. They'll push down this wave. The Voidlings are rampant. Nation ensuring these Nexus towers fall, and it will be GG 27.5 minutes as CPX take the victory.
Yep, absolutely insane across the rift. Great job from Conduit to secure this one. Very unorthodox composition that they came in with. We were not expecting the Diana mid. We were not expecting the Swain Seraphine bottom, but they piloted it to such mastery that like you should have been able to scout it with how good they were, but we couldn't find that even on their match history. So big shout out to them there in game number 1.
It was powerful, and the fact that for the first 11 to 12 minutes we were sitting there going, there's still a lot of opportunity for the side of Dorado to really get into the mix, to be able to fight away and get a lead. I mean, Warlock, we saw even in the mid game, had that power, but it felt like they never took off as far as they wanted, and then they allowed some of these team fights to roll out. If we're looking to game number 2, what needs to change for Dorado if they want to be competitive in this series?
So Dorado, they tried something different for sure. But Baralo's best champion in the APL so far has been Leona. So I was highly expecting a very decisive bot lane. Not So Dark is going to have to play the protect the kite back role. They gave it to him, but they played a very low pressure style in the Karma Varus. If you're not like setting up dives on that tower, or if you're not poking your opponents out of lane, don't pick this champion. The Leona gives any competitive team, like ask your other supports, any competitive team that has an engaged support on their team is very decisive, right? And that's where we saw them falter a little bit around those grub fights, around the team fights around Dragon. It was like, okay, we're here. There's 10 people on my screen, and what do we do? And it was socks to thighs to actually come up with the engage, which is something we don't see a whole lot of mid laners taking the initiative as I'm going to go first. Right, so Not So Dark on the Seraphine is like, I see this great Diana gauge on my screen, I'm just going to press R. And then Domination is, again, the quiet hero of the game, getting such a huge 1v1 advantage in the AD carry role, and then just piloting the team fights, just bulldozing Dorado off the face of the Rift.
All right, well, there you go. Taking a look at that bottom lane, try to get it under control, and we'll see if they can pull it off. But for right now, CPX looked that much better. They looked strong. It took a little bit of time, but at 27.5 minutes, still call that a pretty nice win. We'll go ahead, go to a break, get ready for game number 2, and if that is going to be the end, we'll see if CPX can put it away. Don't go anywhere. The APL will be right back. And welcome back, everyone. We are here for game number 2. Game number 1 ending in a pretty snowbally fashion. It was CPX to take the victory. And we have some of the stats at the end of this game because we do want to take a look at it, where some of that power came from. And you can see, yes, it was some power in the bot lane. Domination came out 11.3. Quite honestly, socks to thighs, breaking things out with that signature Diana.
Yeah, that was a really good carry performance coming in from him on the Diana there. And as we're looking at the damage, Nightmare spent a lot of his lane phase just trying to harass Socks to Thighs. So a lot of that Victor damage is kind of inflated. So meanwhile, Socks to Thighs, a lot of that damage is sort of team fight / side lane advantages. The quiet hero of Dorado was Warlock, finding a lot of pressure in the top lane, getting a nice CS lead for himself, clearing his tower eventually. And we saw that the Rift Herald was one step too far, where he drove the Rift Herald into that top lane tower, wasn't able to access it in the future, and going down because of it. So that slowed the snowball or any semblance of control that Dorado had. And then Conduit, Phoenix were just so solid in their team fight setups once they got rolling.
And the thing is even though that was a shining light, the gold graph shows anything but. And at the current moment, we are seeing the fact that for CPX, if they get a lead, they do know how to close the game out very neatly. You can see all it took was about 7 to 8 minutes of we got a lead to we win the game, which to me, for a team that does want to show up, you mentioned about piling champions, I'm more curious about the closing factor, the macro game. In this elo, are you able to close out a game neatly? And for me, that needs to come quickly, because you know the teams at the top of the bracket already know how to do that. So for game number 2, I'm going to be very excited to watch CPX if they're going to be on red side. If they're able to bring it down, let's go ahead, hop into draft. And it is going to be Conduit once again on the blue side, as Dorado have opted for red.
Yeah, so one of the big question marks that I have is Dorado's bot lane going to show up right now? I don't think you ever lock Varus and Karma with the hopes that they have the same damage in the post game. Kills is a competent AD carry, but maybe they were relying on Baralo on that engage style support to give them sort of that go button or that agency that they need to achieve some semblance of control or a snowball for themselves as we're entering draft number 2.
Oh, and it's going to be a good time, because this could be a pretty interesting matchup as well, in the fact that we got some brothers battling out as well as rivals. And that's kind of the fun part about it. We love to see the storylines come out. These teams were the finalists of the previous APL season, and the fact that they're playing now in the same division leads it to be even better. Not just that, Warlock stepping in as a sub for Dorado, getting a chance to play up against his brother in Socks and Thighs. That, I mean, is a pretty spicy level. So, you know, game 1 was a test. Game 2, all gloves are off.
Yeah, and I think anyone out there watching that has a sibling can totally relate, like in your sort of competitive passion, whether it's a sport, whether it's a game, and then being up against that sibling that you've either been rivals with through your childhood or best friends with in your childhood. It's always nice to keep things nice and close and personal. So we're seeing the Swain respect ban already off the table there. Domination was a little bit too proficient on that champion.
Oh man, and we're already seeing the bans come out here. Pretty same standard, and I like this call. Domination getting that Swain banned. I think it was a little bit too safe for their liking, which I think is very, very understandable. This time around, though, they are going to be leaving open, I think, that brand depending. So your choice is now, do you ban out the Ashe or the brand? I am leaning a little bit more towards that brand. Yes, you're triple AP banning, but it doesn't really matter in the ban phase. You just don't want to let that fall into the hands of Conduit. So 15 seconds left. Do you drop this ban in there or not? Because if you don't, you know it's going to someone on Conduit's hand, or if you're lucky enough, maybe you can grab for yourself. Nope, you drop the Ashe, it's open.
Yeah, so Ashe is open. Jinx prio on both sides is pretty high. So interested to see what the B1 early picks are. Also, the volley bear for Warlock seemed to be a bit of a denial pick away from Dobbs. So is Conduit going to look to get themselves an earlier top laner? They are on the blue side, so securing power is what you're kind of looking for, whereas the red side focuses a little bit more on the counter picking.
Current moment, though, what do you want to do? That is going to be a pike.
That is not a
locked
pike.
in. I don't think so. Yeah, I was like, it flashed a little bit. We'll get information once again. This is Seraphine once again. Okay, so I can get behind this. Not So Dark made it shine last time around, and without the Swain, maybe it's going to be a little bit more vulnerable. However, it was a good pick last time. Very safe, very supportish.
Yep. So a familiar look for Conduit. Now we're going to see it's picked this early in the draft. So we're really going to have to see, are they able to flex it to the AD carry position or something? Because when you're playing Seraphine against a Leona, that is a very scary bot lane and game to be playing. And as we spoke before, Dorado's strength has been Borello on that engaged. Leona is his best champion by far in the APL.
And of course, how do you match it? You match it with one of the best ADCs in the current meta. It is going to be that Ezreal locked in as quick as possible. Ashe is still available if Conduit do wish to pick it up and throw it to the winds. Again, against the Ezreal, might have a little bit of a rough time in the early stages, but I don't dislike it. If you do wish to go for it, it would help quite a bit. Of course, at the current moment, we are winding down those last few seconds, and there it is. I mean, we expected this bot lane locked in. We now get to a blind pick, either jungle, mid, or top.
Yep. You've got a really good read on this draft here, Orbital, calling out a lot of the picks. I love the Ezreal. It's a really good look there for kills and Borello in the bot lane. We might see some weird flexible things going around, but I expect it just to be a bot lane. And Ezreal has really great, Ezreal Leona together have really good ways of threatening that Seraphine, right? With the Solar Flare, with Ezreal's range, able to reach that, whereas Not So Dark was able to just hide at the back line. And speaking of darkness, here we go with another carry jungle. That's the Nocturne.
Oh man, this time it's not a you know, a hover ban or anything like that. It's not a mess up. This does look like an actual Nocturne, and following up behind it, like, it makes so much sense. Ashe long range ult, you can affect the rest of the map. This is why you pick this champion. So you go ahead and lock it in. Now, of course, we mentioned that Ezreal can go bot lane. However, I know a lot of people do like to talk about the Ezreal mid lane can be a very nice power move. I think you mentioned it earlier, but the Amumu now locked in to solidify that safety value. Leona, Amumu bringing out some of the best wombo combos in the game, solidifies a team fight style for Dorado that if it hits level 6, as soon as they do, I want to see them making moves.
Yeah, this is Dorado going completely opposite of the game one script, saying we're going to draft all the go buttons and we're going to be the team that's going to force on you. They're able to push the pace a lot with the amount of engage on the side of the Amumu and the Ezreal. You've got so many cooldowns to throw at your opponents. And just a quick reminder for anyone watching, that Pike on your screen is actually Seraphine. So Conduit is going for a very fragile bot lane, and hopefully Dorado can find some windows where they can punish that.
I think they're going to get more than enough to try and punish if they can be a little bit more expansive and I want to say expressive in how they want to move. The Silas ban doesn't really surprise me. Yes, you don't want to let Leona and Amumu ultimates go the way of Conduit, but at the same time, it's a well-played one from Dobbs in the top lane. The Mordekaiser ban, switching things up a little bit because you're assuming Dorado are not going to be running that Volibear in the top lane once again. So I like the call out of don't allow the Realm of Death to catch you, and there's the Diana ban, respect ban as ban 5 against the likes of Socks to Thighs, just saying you played a little bit too good on that champion.
Yeah, I'm very curious to where Dorado is going to go from here, because Merc Treads are way too valuable for the side of Conduit at the moment. So is Dorado going to be able to pull out some of these AD mids? If they locked an AD carry on 4 and played the Ezreal mid, that would be a good look for them. But is Dorado going to have that in their wheelhouse, or will it just be another control mage pick there for Nightmare in the mid lane? Because we do expect Walk Warlock to fully take advantage of that R5 this time around, similar to what he did last time with the flex pick Volibear.
This would be the interesting factor. Victor also taken away. You ban the Diana, we ban your Victor, and all of a sudden mid lane becomes another Nightmare. That might be a piece of the puzzle. Nightmare themselves, remember last time, blind picked the Victor. They wanted to give pressure over. However, this time it's going to change up. They call down the Olaf, which is a bit surprising. Normally you grab that if you see CC on the other side. However, this does allow Conduit, this does allow Dobbs to flex out something that can keep the Olaf at bay, maybe punish them in that factor.
Yeah, I don't hate it. It definitely gives you some of your AD damage, definitely plays for some lane aggression. And we're actually going to see an R5 mid for the side of Dorado. So is Nightmare going to be able to take advantage of some of these counter picks? If you look at the bans across the board, it looks like AP champions are the most broken, as we're seeing two high volatility melees being locked in. Irelia and Gwen for the side of Conduit. This draft just got spicy.
I love this so much. Quite honestly, not only does Gwen have an invulnerability, Aurelia has a way to buffer the CC from Leona and Amumu. If you want to get CC reduction without getting CC reduction, this is the way to do it. Dorado realizing that things have just gone awry. This mid lane pickup is going to be interesting. And they go for the Urgot. This feels like a T1 piece of the puzzle. If this is an Olaf and Aurelia mid, I'm going to be so entertained. If this is an Urgot top, it's going to get even better. We have gotten pure team fight, and if we do not see them team fight, I'm going to be very sad.
Okay, so there's only one correction that we see so far, and it's that the fourth pick, the Olaf on your screen, is actually Syndra. So we do have to apologize once again.
No.
The safe AP mid laners seems to be what Dorado is going to stick with. Nightmare is going to be piloting the Syndra in this one. So very AP heavy, very CC heavy on the side of Dorado. With the fifth pick, Urgot, that pick is a little bit spicy, does have to do well, but Conduit have seemed to grab themselves a lot of champs that like what Dorado's comp is going to be doing is blowing up one or more members, but Conduit, they don't necessarily care as long as their Seraphine plus a couple carries survive that burst damage.
I'm just, and especially how we saw game one pan out, CPX are leaning into this, we are going to decimate you and we do not care what happens. And this actually makes me look over at Just Cooper and say Just Cooper needs to influence these lanes a little bit more. And I hate saying that because in game one, the Xin Zhao is a perfect pick to get in the early game. You're looking at that level 3, 4. You can jump in for the ganks and really just cause chaos. And Amumu doesn't have that same factor, and yet this is one of those times that you need to be influencing. If the Aurelia gets a single trade, which we saw Socks to Thighs do, that leans over.
Yeah, it kind of reverses the script a little bit. So in this game, we're going to be looking at kills. He was invisible in the first game on the Varus, didn't accomplish really anything with that pick. The bot lane together, they kind of fell flat a little bit, and now they're back to their bread and butter a little bit. So they've got the Ezreal, they got the Leona, they've got tons of go buttons. So I'm really going to be looking at Dorado's early game to see, are we on the same page? Are we able to blow up some of these members? Because you do have to establish early. You're against Seraphine, like she's going to do her thing. She's going to be a nuisance back there. You can reach her this time. There is definite blow up factor on the side of Dorado. You've drafted tools and it's all about how you use them.
So now I'm curious, you're talking about the bot lane still being a high priority. Do you leave mid lane alone then? Because quite honestly, I think the bottom lane was just neutral. If we talk about it, it was mid lane that we saw Socks Thighs come up. So if you are Just Cooper, do you hard focus that bottom lane? And understandably so, have a high possibility of Socks Thighs just running over the game and all of a sudden kills doesn't matter even if you do get a lead.
Yeah, I would say the bot lane focus should be of paramount importance. I think you pick the control mage in Syndra in this game for a little bit of control, because on the other side, Conduit has gone for chaos in the mid lane. Like Socks to Thighs, the Diana game 1, the Irelia game 2, this is craziness in the mid lane. He is out for blood. You do not want to run into that, because once Irelia puts together some Mercury treads for herself and grabs some tenacity, like she will 1v2 the Amumu Syndra. I'm almost sure of it. So you got to be very careful when and where you're going to strike. And I'm looking at this bot lane. Seraphine is not allowed to just function against Leona Amumu. That's not how this game works. So I'm really putting emphasis on this bot lane. And the question obviously is going to be, is Walk Warlock, excuse me, going to be able to eke out another 1v1 advantage, because he did quite well in game number 1. If he's able to get the better of Dobbs and we see a Gwen from behind, that's suddenly not as scary as a Gwen from ahead with a Seraphine behind her.
So now we're moving towards that top side, and I really like that call because that one also had its ups and downs, and Walk Warlock had the overall pressure but still fell behind, wasn't able to really secure the kills. Do you see an Urgot being able to get a lead on their own? And if so, does that mean Dobbs automatically falls behind? Because Dobbs in the mid to late still held their own pretty well in game number 1.
I do believe with the way Walk Warlock is not only drafting, with the way he's playing, he's opting into the matchup that has the most agency early. Gwen is not this like crazy champion until she puts together some levels, some items. She's going for a later spike. Whereas Urgot, with the setup or support from an Amumu, maybe a Romy Leona, maybe we see Baralo make an appearance up there, that is a very different conversation. So I do expect Walk Warlock to have agency early. Now, again, when I say agency, doesn't mean he's just automatically going to win. He does have to put in the work. He does have to get the CS, and he does have to find volatility in his matchup. But I fully expect him to do so.
Oh, I like that call, especially with an Urgot. It's always a lot of fun. That leaves Nation to have the counter activity value here. The Nocturne being locked in here into what I believe was the B3 position. You saw two champions come out. You saw the Leona Ezreal, and you locked in the Nocturne. Now you see the rest of the composition come out, and the fact that you were calling out, Jordan, hey, Just Cooper needs to go to that bottom lane, needs to start hanging on to that bottom lane as much as possible. Do we see Nation follow? Do we see Nation actually guide towards that bottom lane and try and get the Ashe Seraphine into a good spot? Or do you just gank the other lanes and go the opposite direction and say, yo, I don't care how strong your bottom lane is, I'm just going to get my solo laners ahead?
See, that's a great question, because he could play the game of you strike first and I'm going to third party it, sort of with a Nocturne ult coming in. I would say I would lean more onto the edge of, you've got the cleanse on the Ashe, you've got the heal on the Seraphine, you have a lot of tools to play very safe and conservative. You might have to sack, it might get a little rough, but if I'm the Nocturne in this game, I'm playing for side lane leads. Right now, this composition, the way I see it gets really weird for Dorado is when the lane phase ends and people start side laning, because Syndra versus an Aurelia in a long lane does not sound fun, like ever. And then if Gwen, that's where Nocturne can cause chaos in these side lanes. That's what I would say is, like, CPX have drafted themselves a very well-rounded composition where they have multiple avenues into the game. They can go for team fights if they are able to get the levels and items. They can go for side lane and make the map dark, make everything scary, because Dorado does have a very scary 5v5, right? Do not let them play fair.
Okay, I like it. Finally, we get to talk a little bit more. I still want to lean on this mid lane because it's a lot of fun to me. I want to know specifically if you think Socks to Thighs will win early, because we know later you mentioned, yeah, that's going to win in a 1v2. It's going to get out of control unless we see the shutdowns. Do you think Socks to Thighs is going to have that same ability that they had in game 1? Because remember, even pre-level 5, we saw Nightmare getting bullied out, saw them not really being able to trade as well as they would most likely want to. Do we think Socks to Thighs can enable an early game advantage as simply as in game 1?
So game number 1, we saw him basically dashing in on cooldown on the Diana, playing like an absolute psycho, and Irelia is even better at that. So if you were to ask bot laner what champions scare you the most, it's Blitzcrank mains and it's Draven mains, right? Those are probably the top 2. If you were to ask mid lane, it's melee players. These players are a different breed. They're terrifying and they break the rules that you think you're going to play. So the Nightmare is going to be farming his wave, and then suddenly Socks to Thighs mean jumping in on your face. You have to blow the stun defensively, and then you lose some HP, and then before you know it, he's snowballing on the whole map. So very excited to see if Socks to Thighs is going to be able to snowball on his opponent. And on the other side, Warlock, I'm giving him the edge in the top lane.
All right, well, there you go. Let's go ahead, get into the game as soon as possible. We want to see if CPX are able to take it away. Honestly, the composition looks scary on paper. They got the lane bullies, they got the advantages, and they won game 1 after about minute 18 very cleanly. Of course, for Dorado, they're going to try their own style. Good team fights if they wish, and they can bring some bullies. The brothers will battle on opposite sides of the rift and on opposite teams, but of course, the rivalry and brotherhood is very much alive. And at the current moment, it's just a standard 5v5 lineup. No real difference, as, you know, you just keep it safe. New skin on the Aurelia. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Oh, that's mean. That's mean.
Classic. That's the first strike. That's the first strike. Mana flow diff right there. Bone plating down. Lane phase in the favor of Nightmare.
That's rude.
At 54 seconds.
That's rude. Okay, do it. Come on, Nathan, hit him. Hit him with the key. Oh, okay, never mind. Either way, I do agree. Just getting these little advantages is, you know, as much as we want to talk about respect, it's a, you know, it's a competitive game at the end of the day, which Socks to Thighs, I think, even knew this was going to happen, went with the door and shield, just like, yeah, this is going to be annoying.
Yep, absolutely, going in for the sustain war, but then we're going to see some fireworks going on that side. So As we're looking at the map, expect to see push in the favor of Dorado. This Ezreal champion is very good at establishing that. Limited tools on the side of Not So Dark. They might be able to control, but you're seeing a leash on the one side. They are completely bowing out of the race. Kills and Boralo have their first bite at the bot lane minion wave.
Go ahead and keep themselves in a nice little spot. Try and get that early lead as well and just be a giant pain in the butt. Already 3 auto attacks, but Socks the Thighs goes a little bit too far.
That's the tower shot.
And so this is the dangerous part. You step a little too far, and all of a sudden that lane state swings so heavily in the other direction. Granted, the door and shield will help out, but you do have to play the range just perfectly.
Yeah, we talked about draft quite a bit, talking about win conditions, talking about what these teams have to do. But at the end of the day, draft is not going to get you the Nexus. What's going to get you the Nexus is superior teamwork and superior micro-macro play. And right now, we're seeing it from Socks to Thighs. Another tower shot.
Nice little, good scout of the week. Nightmare understanding that the jump misplaces you a little bit and sets you behind. However, the damage is already done, and that's terrifying to me because this, I mentioned before, hey, you know, that mid lane is one that you kind of want to watch for. I don't think Nightmare is going to be able to sustain as well as we assume. You know, these early game, the scout of the weeks and everything, it's such a long cooldown that Socks the Thighs is going to have a pretty good time, and that's why we see Just Cooper kind of hovering around here.
Cooper just flashed the wall.
Oh, and that's rough. That's rough right there, because now for Socks the Thighs, you're like, hey, I just got a summoner spell, meaning we can advance on this top side if we so wish.
Yeah, that's so scary, and it looks like Nation is going to try to take a bite out of the top lane. Walk Warlock is in trouble.
I think you're going to be okay. Good spell shield there, and you get the flash, and you fear him backwards as well. This could be first blood if you do it just right. Dubs has another Q up, but you don't need it. You get the slap down. First blood to Dobbs.
Yeah, that's amazing play coming in from Nation and Dobbs. CPX playing really well across the map so far. Just Cooper thought he had something of an angle onto Socks and Thighs, blows the flash over the Raptor pit, and it comes out completely empty-handed. So that's going to feel really bad for Amumu's game. He does want to power up to level 6, but he wants to get something going because they've drafted so much activity for themselves. But Nation is going to feel so good being that jungler that wants to hit level 6, but has now done a positive play into Dobbs' lane, the lane that we've said was going to be heavily favored by Walk Warlock as we see him going in for another trade.
Oh man, it's just these differences are causing so many problems. I think there's another scout of the week that goes awry, and I'll be honest, Jordan, I will be completely honest. I'm not liking what I'm seeing right now. That's already 3 or 4 steps that we're seeing just fall behind for the side of Dorado, and it doesn't bode well for the rest of the game. If we want to see them come out on top, if we want to see them push for a game 3, we need to see that cleanup. We need to see the ability start hitting, and we need to see conciseness from the squad, or else CPX will be stomping their way to a game 2.
Yeah, and all eyes are going to be on this bottom lane. Just Cooper does get spotted, unfortunately. He's having a bit of a catastrophic early game here, not able to really impact anything. Again, he does have a lot to offer at level 6, but again, Boralo on this Leona, we talked about it before, it's his best champion so far in the APL. We're going to look to the bottom lane now as the catalyst, because some things have not gone so hot for them. Giving first blood in the top lane, they're down a tremendous amount of CS in the mid lane, and largely inactive in the jungle because the flash is down. You got to get something going on this Leona. This Seraphine Ashe duo is not the most they're fragile. They're definitely exploitable. I will not go around and say that this is the best bot lane you can draft, and here he goes.
You go ahead and get that CC down, but the CC back means Kills is actually in a really rough spot. You're also fighting in a massive minion wave. So the fact that Domination and Not So Dark are just like, yeah, we'll let you do that, leaves Kills and Borolo in a terribly rough spot.
Yeah, I mean, both AD carries are going to elect for a recall, so I don't hate the angle. Boralo needs to play a little bit liberal with his cooldowns and his HP. He does need to create situations that are a little bit uncomfortable. You do need to start heavy trading in some of these lanes if you're going to find lethal, because they do have the sustained advantage, they have the slow shieldage, but you do have to kind of cut through it if you're going to take a member down. If they're all staying at 100% HP, CPX is coming out on top.
I think right now CPX are also just sitting there gliding their way to a CS advantage. Remember, 1 kill is all that's been thrown down, but we are seeing that 500 gold difference come through. first grubs are going to go the way of Nation this time around, not on the Belveth, but you get some advantages and keep the top side of the map alive. Dragon, of course, being picked up by Dorado. They'll contain their own. It is a Hextech Dragon to play for first. Next up, of course, is that Mountain Dobbs, though. Taking a lot of damage, but no mana inside of Walk Warlock means that you aren't actively going to have that Fear Beyond Death.
Yeah, a lot of limited resources up here. Both top laners trying to take a bite of each other. Ultimate's thrown, but looks like Nation is going to be up here first. And could this be a bit of a dive? It doesn't look like they're on the same page. Dobbs kind of walking back and forth up there. But is okay. So Walk Warlock's going to collect the wave. Pretty good aversion of conflict there. And as we kind of missed this part on the Rift, but Dragon number 1 did go over to Dorado, and Grub set number 1 went over to CPX, as we're seeing Brawlo is active on the map again.
And it's just this easy. I don't think you have a way back out because you are going to get Fear. Just Cooper isn't level 6. Fear Beyond Death is going to land, but it lands on the tankiest member. Yes, Nation will go down. However, the 2-piece has already gone through. Socks to thighs is going to dash away. No Scatter the Weak to land either. And it feels like it's going to be a good one. Good stun against that wall, but a flash out means you're safe. And honestly, you'll take that all day long because now you get power on the bottom side, CPX. You're okay with that.
Yeah, Brawlo coming up, but with the limited resources coming in from Walk Warlock, he was in no condition to fight, and that was exactly the situation that we talked about was possible in draft. Socks to thighs kind of just coming out ahead in the skirmish, which is what they drafted for with the Nocturne and the Irelia. That was so much damage coming forth on the supportive members. This Leona Amumu combo is not doing enough damage to really lethal somebody, threaten lethal on somebody, but Nightmare coming in with the kill. That's going to feel pretty nice for the Syndra, as cross-killing is going to be needed in this game with the amount of volatility in these lanes.
Right now, it just feels like CPX are getting everything that they could possibly want. I wouldn't be surprised to see that gold lead just continue to balloon, never see a dip. It's going to look like a mountain being built up over time. There's going to be the Nocturne ultimate, though. Cleanse used early as well. That allows for the flash, and with that encore, it will lead Barolo to a very low HP. You have flash. You're flashing away underneath the tower, but you can't jump in a straight line. Kills realizes that.
That was gorgeous. Recognizing that Ezreal didn't really have any safety, like the E was available, but with the terrain that he was pushed up against, it was really going to be really hard for him to get out of the arrow. Gets hit by the arrow, blows the cleanse in a very awkward way, and Nation just going to come in, get that pickup. They make it look easy.
I mean, this game is slowly getting out of control. I would say it's already out of control, but it started, it feels like, from minute 2 or 3. We see the Merc Treads already built on Socks to Thighs. Domination now sitting at a pretty hefty gold lead after getting 3 plates in the bottom side. And Walk Warlock, we mentioned this player that was very strong in game number 1 in the 1v1 individually, hasn't really had their start because Dobbs got such an early advantage. And we mentioned before, it feels like Nation has a choice. Are you going to match the likes of Just Cooper, or are you going to take advantage on your own? It feels like Just Cooper is actually chasing after Nation and trying to get this type of pressure down. We're just now seeing this fight, and you see the bandage Tasha doesn't land. Just Cooper just not getting the value out of this Amuma that you were hoping.
It just feels so bad right there, because if Barolo hits that Zenith Blade, the follow-up from Just Cooper, he's able to put his ultimate down. I like to think that one member can maybe go down there if they're able to lock down Not So Dark. But 2-L, it does go wide. Seraphine is level 6 now, so it does feel kind of bad. More volatility in the mid lane, though.
Ooh, and this one's might be a little bit better. This time you have 2 and 3, a much better number to play with. And this time Nation might be a little bit rough for wear. Good Scout of the Week ensures a double kill, and you know what? You'll take 2 kills wherever you can. Just Cooper getting a little bit of a buff for themselves.
Yeah, that was a really nice play coming in from Dorado, isolating the mid lane matchup, saying this Irelia has been playing aggressive on me the entire game. Find some numbers, find some darkness, and let's play with a numbers advantage. They do strike back. I was looking at Irelia's HP bar because the Merc Treads go crazy in that kind of a fight. And if the HP bar doesn't hit 0, speaking of 0, here comes the bot lane of CPX.
Kills getting zeroed out here of their own. Not So Dark grabbing their own kill for themselves. And I mean, that's one away from Domination, who is like, come on, I want to get kills, please. Can you give it to me? Not gonna happen. You get the CS. So bot lane in control once again of CPX, and Dorado's bot lane is pretty much out of this game.
Yeah, that feels really bad. That's why Ashe is such a high prioritized champion. Kills if you're not sharp with that buffer of the E on the Ashe arrow or preemptively Eing the Ashe arrow. But as I'm talking, more aggression on the top side.
And this time around, it's going to be a little different. Dobbs has time to farm up, but not as much as you wish. The needlework is already gone. However, you devised a way to stay safe. Remember, you don't have to win because bot lane is so far ahead. In a 4v3 situation, you really don't want to fight if you're CPX, but the bot lane is going to do their work. So at the current moment, it'll be Grubs handed over to Dorado if they can. And I think they're going to be more than happy with that consolation.
Yeah, bot lane tower is going to fall. That means 5 plates for the bot lane of CPX. They're going to be able to transition out of this lane, and that just means the side laners are going to start side laning it. When Aurelia goes bottom or top, whichever one they choose, it is going to be an absolute terrifying affair. As we talked about from draft, if Dorado does fall behind, the 1-3-1 setup from CPX is going to be relenting.
It's a painful note to make. As prior to 14 minutes, we have a 3K lead. Now, granted, that hasn't shifted in the last minute or two, but it is going to weigh in heavily on this next Drake. CPX looking to get the mountain and then put themselves up for maybe what, an infernal of some sort. Domination, though, taking a page out of Walk Warlock's favor and saying, yo, in game 1 you rotated once you on lane, I'm doing the same. Gets a kill for themselves, opens the door with this Kraken Slayer, and that'll mean Dragon for CPX.
That's going to feel really bad. Just Cooper losing his cooldowns there, does lose his life, and they are going to lose the Dragon. CPX is in full control of this game, but Walk Warlock could be the deciding factor for Dorado.
I mean, you're hoping so. There's a fear beyond death, and you get the kill that you so desperately needed. Using a flash in the hand, though, now you got to make up for lost ground because you're losing on the rest of the map. I mean, Socks to Thighs, 2-1-1, has a 30 CS lead over your opponent. I mean, the brother's going to be putting in work.
Yep, absolutely. Walk Warlock getting that kill is actually so important. He's kind of the shining light, and he's holding this game in contention. Like, 3K gold lead is not insurmountable. If you do have a very strong AD threat in the Urgot, he could be the deciding factor that is allowing Dorado to sort of bite back in some of these moments. But for now, Summoner's Rift, it's absolutely CPX in charge of most of it.
At this point, this is also the moments where we saw CPX in game number 1 start to snowball the game. They said, hey, we have a lead. Let's go ahead and start kind of putting down the pressure. Now, in the previous game, it was also a little bit later into it. I think it was about 18 minutes before we saw them really start putting it down. But, I mean, if you have this much of a lead, you start to swing it around, especially with Herald on the table. If you're able to collect this one, which you have had control over a majority share of this map. I mean, the only time that you didn't was when, what was it, Barolo decided to leave bot lane because bot lane was already down. With the numbers advantage, you should have Herald in your pocket.
Yeah, so it's going to be on Dorado to play a little bit respectful. Ezreal is very good at clearing these waves in the mid lane, so Herald should be the priority of CPX to break this mid lane tower. That would be very transformative for the game to deny some safety in terms of the wave clear. Dorado kind of eyeballing it, seeing if they want to maybe inch their way to the objective, but they're going to come up empty-handed. Barolo just kind of jobless right now, just playing the vision game, trying to grab for any sort of semblance of pressure in this game. And Nightmare going back to the side lane, and Socks is going to find him isolated. It's got
it feels so good right now, though. But Just Cooper getting a nice CC chain, even with the cleanse. It might change out, but in comes that Nocturne Paranoia. Now you gotta try and turn it around. Not so dark, stepping up pretty dang far, trying to bully them out because they have no ultimates. Remember, a lot of their power is gone. They don't have their ADC, and in comes Socks. Socks to Thighs says, Socks to die for. We are gonna get those kills. Another arm goes out. Nightmare tried to bring out the unleashed power. The power is pretty much a tickle. And now with the scout of the week only catching one, you are on the run for your life. A flash forward, slowed a little bit, getting some healing, but nothing more. Fear comes in. Domination will go down, but the kill threat is still there. Sarah's embrace doesn't mean anything here, as you are barely going to stay alive. Nation, though, will have another claw up. I think this is going to be a kill, or no? Are you going to get the extra orbs on the ground? You do. Thankfully, this is a Chemtech plant map, or you would have been dead in the water.
Yeah, I'm going to say Nightmare played that really well, and Domination did not play that super well. Kind of walking back in to try and go for the kill. Goes down relatively easily, so it's going to feel really nice for Nightmare to have access to some of these items, these big ticket items that he's got to pay for, and able to cut through the MR that is going to be picked up by CPX. But CPX coming through with the exact plan that we kind of outlined in their draft. When they spread out, they go 1-3-1, they push the side lanes, and Nightmare is largely isolated. That's when they choose the moment, turn out the lights, bring the teleports, and they attack the 3-man of Dorado when their ultimates are down. They blew all of their major cooldowns, and it's just open season with a numbers advantage. That's got to feel really good for CPX.
At the same time, I'm liking the fact that Dorado are starting to bear their fangs. Just Cooper has had to take a long time to get into this mix, and because of the triple AD coming out here from Nation, Socks the Thighs, and Domination, heavy armor build from Just Cooper. Now, once Dobbs, of course, gets unlocked, you may see a little bit of MR picked up, maybe like half of an item, maybe a Negatron cloak just to sit on if Dobbs joins in. But this is a big call. I like the fact that they're even trying for these fights. With the dragon coming up here in just about 40 seconds, you can see the vision line of Dorado still heavily in their own jungle. They need to start pushing it up if they want to fight for this objective.
Yeah, I think if you're Dorado, Dragon number 2 going down in the favor of CPX, the second soul stack for them, would not be the end of the world. I don't think it's the game yet. So, but the question is, what are they going to do that's productive on the map on the other side? So if they aren't going to take them on in a team fight, because I think a team fight right now, you don't have the items necessary to really do something. Maybe they fair their chances as the Rift Herald is being summoned. This is again the trump card, but they're looking for Not So Dark.
Oh, but it's a triple encore from Not So Dark. Of course, the rest of the team is here, and Dobbs is nowhere to be found. CC chain, though, lands, and that's going to be the Herald just doing a drive-by. It didn't actually land on anyone. Mistakes were made as CPX lose full control over this dragon.
Yeah, wait a minute. Their approach on this objective was very scattered. They had the Rift Herald, which should be favoring CPX, but Domination actually hopped in it. I couldn't tell if that was preemptive or reactive, but very disjointed. But Warlock looks like he's pressuring the mid lane. Now he's the one caught out.
Of course, Arrow goes just awkward directions. Nation, though, looking for the kills on the back end. Scatter the Weak gonna come out. Good stun against the wall. And now they're gonna turn around. Dobbs, though, wants to throw down the damage, and the scissors are actually gonna go sip. And Domination is still alive, but good flash. Barolo is gonna stay alive for just a little bit longer. But a step up, Dobbs is going to try and shred. Domination now gets scattered out as Nightmare gets the Sarah's Embrace shield. Once again, another bandage shot should be coming up here shortly, and you might be able to get around that corner. However, just Cooper and Kills don't want to go further, so they'll stave off a 2 for 2 at the end of the day. But Dorado getting a much needed injection of gold.
Yeah, whenever you're able to trade kill like this, it's really favoring the losing team. So Dorado is getting a massive injection of gold. You're seeing on your screen, it's only about 2.5k in the favor of CPX. We were saying that it was 3k before that. So that means Dorado is actually starting to put together some of the economy that they're going to need to contest their opponents. Now that team fight was very sloppy on the side of CPX, very disjointed, trying to salvage some of the initial exchange. And that means Dragon is going to be going over to Dorado as well.
We always talk about that gold lead. We mentioned it before, and you have to keep in mind the reason we talk about it is because of the fact that we haven't seen it shift in the last, what, 10 minutes now? 7 to 10 minutes. If a gold lead doesn't shift throughout the rest of the game, it means you're actually losing gold. Gold functionally loses value over time. And that's why we're really curious about it. So for Dorado, Baron is up. You have the team fight prowess, and you have the Ezreal, who's 2-3-1, by the way, building into their own man immune and the like. You can start putting in work as a team fight squad, because at the same time, you can always assume that CPX are going to be looking for those flank options. You catch the weaker of the flank, you can get a pretty big dub.
Yep. And I want to stress again how important it is that Ezreal and Urgot are strong in this game, because you look at Aurelia's inventory and she's checked every single box in the book in terms of the way to counter Leona, Amumu, and Syndra. So a lot of the DPS coming from those AD members is going to be so paramount in taking down some of these bruisers that just seem so unkillable with the backing of the Seraphine. Not So Dark has been playing pretty well, did get caught out and was the focus of some of the engaged targets, does have both summoners, so I like to think that the next team fight is still in favor of CPX.
Of course, they got to pull the trigger as well, or they just don't, and they continue to try and put these 1v1s, because we mentioned the strength that Dorado has is in their multiple members. Well, if you allow Socks and Thighs to just kind of push on their own, they're still pretty dang strong in their own individual. But now Cooper realizes they went a little bit too far, and what did I just say? Dorado are strong in a team, but individually they are weak. Just Cooper, he has quite literally the largest opportunity right back to CPX for Baron.
Yeah, Baron spawning, so that's actually one of the worst times to go down. And Barolo was completely in the base when that happened, so that was a really bad misstep coming in from the side of Dorado, and that's going to be Baron started up by CPX. No jungler means how are you going to contest this? Is Kills going to be able to land enough poke to just sort of dissuade the members from CPX? Here he comes.
Oh, they're gonna go ahead, jump their way in. Smite should come down. It should be granted, and Encore lands on so many. Paranoia goes in goes the Vanguard's Edge as well. They're just jumping for joy. Yes, you get a kill back, but Warlock and Barolo are alone. Kills is the only one without kills but their life. And it will be a nice one to have CPX rip control right back in their favor.
Yep, and now we're really getting a preview of what these teams will do. They had the same record going into this one, and now we get to see, is one team just their teamwork and their individual prowess is just really shining through in this one. They look so organized and so decisive on the Rift. I really want to commend Conduit for taking the initiative first in a lot of these exchanges.
Oh man, it is coming down to a little game of inches. Socks to Thighs, though, gonna get a chance to outduel Nightmare if they're able to take down this tower. I don't think Nightmare really wants to be here. Yeah, that was a very quick. All right, I'll give it a tower. I'm so sorry, TP'd here. Have a good day.
Yeah, so Dorado's going to be on the back foot for a while. Now the shining, sort of the silver lining here is definitely Drake number 4 is on the table in about 30 seconds. We are giving that for sure. Like, we are down a Baron, we are down items. The gold lead has now ballooned to 6K. We have made a massive mistake. If they go bot river right now, it's all but over.
I mean, that's where they're looking at. This is going to be a little bit of a vision control battle, because once again, you really need to keep eyes on where the likes of Warlock is. And for CPX, you're looking at Warlock and Cooper. Keep in mind these two players. Make sure you keep them in check before they cause a massive catastrophe. But at the current moment, Dorado are also saying, we just don't want to fight. It's only second dragon for them. We don't have to force anything. We don't need to get messy, because they're burning daytime with this Baron. I think they're going to be more than okay with it.
Yep, you got to slow the game down a little bit. You got to catch some waves. You do have access to a lot of wave clear. The Baron makes that a little bit rough. You are going to have to concede some of these inner towers, but defending your base is the biggest priority right now, and just weathering the storm that is the CPX crew. Now, Just Cooper, is he going to go for a bit of a dissuasion flank here, just to sort of fend off some of the attacking members from CPX?
Dobbs, though, getting a little bit of happiness and a little bit of safety, as Arrow is going to land so easily, and they have more than enough shred. The catch is just too dang good, and they were pulled every which way. Honestly, CPX played that macro perfectly, just drawing Dorado everywhere.
Yeah, that was really nice. Walk Warlock didn't get to play fair there. He's been doing really well in his 1v1, but then when he can't click anything, he can't move his character, he's gonna go down.
Honestly, I would have liked to see CPX actually push a little bit further. I think they have more than enough power to press forward, look at a little bit of an inhibitor tower damage, but instead they go back, say, hey, we have a little bit of extra gold to build for, and we're seeing those items come through. Socks to Thighs already on 3 items, has a longsword as that last little purchase at the end. Nasian 2.5, 2 completed for Dobbs, who is now slightly caught up to Walk Warlock, and then in the ADC role, 2.5, almost 3, getting a little bit extra punch for domination, with 2 just completed for kills. CPX are starting to cash in on their leads and are looking for a lot more.
Yeah, and the only thing not really covered by you, Orbital, and as a support main, I got to call you out for it. Seraphine having 2 completed items right there is actually very impactful for the game. Those 2 items are extremely important for her ability to kind of make her whole team unkillable, seemingly. And then you look on the other side, the Leona just barely one and change, like able to get access to the Warmog's heart. But are these team fights really going to transpire in a way that's going to allow the Leona to engage, disengage, get access to that regen, and then come forth again? So she does have access to a lot of bonus health, but Seraphine has access to way more shielding.
And you know what, I'll take that one on the chin. I understand that one. Not so dark deserves a lot of credit, considering also the encores that they've had. They've been so impactful in a lot of these major team fights that it's caused some major confusion. CPX now pulling towards the top side and are looking to route 1 or 2 members, and it looks like they caught him. Just Cooper and Barolo getting sectioned out here, and it can be very, very dangerous. But good wave clear from Nightmare to keep them all at bay. This is just that push and pull until the next objective comes up, which is Baron in about a minute and a half. Good low flash out. Barolo almost losing their life.
Yeah, I got to be really careful with where you're contesting. Arrow is going to go wide this time. Nightmare is going to be able to sort of be that brick wall and saying, you shall not pass. You will not get access to our final inner tower. But Baron coming up means CPX is on the left side of the map, and they're going to be there at the right time. Socks and Thigh is going to walk his way away from that one, and CPX is just drowning the top side of the map in vision. If they can clear out some of these wards left by Dorado, the Baron could be started.
I like the fact that they're all just kind of waiting and hunkering down here. Socks and Thighs is like, yo, I just want a team fight. I want to get messy. I want to get in the mix. Rest of Dorado are hard grouping around. You say no worries about the other side. That's gonna be a catch though, and it looks like you got at least one. You're gonna try and turn around, but Encore lands on 4. What a nasty combo! That is going to be a catch and a half, and Dubs comes in for the help. The shred is just too good. Fear Beyond Death is gonna get 1 at least, so the turnaround is gonna be okay, but Domination is still free firing on the back line. Warlock tried to do their best, but this tower dive is gonna go through. Jump forward means nothing here, as the shred is beautiful. Kills has nothing. Flash forward from Domination as it's a triple, and you're alive. CPX, get the ace.
Oh my god, CPX is going to keep pushing with the heals and shields coming in from the Seraphine. Domination doing really good job playing aggressive but staying alive. For a moment there, it looked like Dorado was going to use the power of Walk Warlock's Urgot to start to trade some of these kills. The Fear Beyond Death buys so much space. Not So Dark had to kind of kite away from it to avoid the fear, but CPX just seemed to have all the answers, all the gold, and now you're looking at an 11,000 gold lead. They're going to go back to base, spend all of that, and then play for what looks like the Baron, I imagine, but they might try to check all the boxes you don't want to throw, so maybe just taking the Dragon first could be the option.
At this point, you have to know how messy that looked from CPX's side as well. What was it? Socks to Thighs getting caught? You're just like, ah, crap. Okay, maybe we don't go too hard like that once again. However, in the 4v5 setting, it was one thing. In a 5v5 setting, it's a whole different story. And Barolo jumps forward a little bit too quickly, but they don't have Curse inside money. It's another Quadra Encore, and this time you got nothing else to back you up. Socks to Thighs, allowed to roam, and this is just annihilation. Dorado, the road doesn't lead and end with gold. It leads to your demise. Nightmare is going to be the last to fall. It's a triple for the likes of Socks to Thighs, and it's an ace to go ahead and end this game. CPX back-to-back team fights punch their way to a 2-1 series score here in the Aegis Protector League, and they deserve it. From minute 1, they were in control of this game too. They had a couple of hiccups along the way. The brothers vamp though comes to an end as Dorado Gaming will fall. CPX take the dub.
Yep, and when we're thinking about who are these contenders when we are approaching the playoff situations, what are the teams you want to look out for? I think Conduit eSports, Conduit Phoenix just really made a great statement on look out for us because we're coming.
And I have to give props. We mentioned Walk Warlock on the top side, stepping in as a sub, listed as a sub, but played like a starter player, very controlled, very much in favor. It just wasn't enough. And you mentioned this bottom lane as well. it feels like the junglers were not always there. You see 13.3 and 10.5, and yet domination on the Ashe that was banned in game 1, left open in game 2, and napped up so quick, 29,000 damage, eclipsing the Ezreal by almost 14,000 damage.
Yeah, that is absolutely insane. Dominating performance from Domination. He is going to lead the charge on the Ashe there, and he helps solidify with his aggressive play. A lot of good arrows from him, and not so dark. That face check at the end, I gotta sort of scratch my head. I don't think that's how you want to play that. Eating all of the CC, almost going down, but at the end of the day, they played really well with around this Seraphine, a pick that they haven't really shown in the past. So it goes to speak to the strategic depth. And Dorado Gaming did not have the answers tonight on what they needed to really deal with the quadra carries and a Seraphine coming in from Conduit.
It was just so impactful, and I loved every moment of it. And it made me kind of think, because I was sitting there going, hey, pretty nice job from Socks and Thighs in the game 1, and now we saw in this game 2 everyone stepping up as well. I gotta ask you, Jordan, who do you feel is the MVP of the series for Conduit Phoenix?
I'm going to have to go with Socks and Ties. He was an absolute maniac, but it was a lot of calculated aggression. A lot of his deaths tonight were pretty good deaths that his team could capitalize on. And that's where we separate a lot of the players in the APL is your mistakes are definitely present. But are they mistakes that your team can capitalize on, or are the mistakes that's really costing your team? Because I don't want to be too negative, but Cooper getting caught in the bot river as Baron was spawned without his team really just gets caught out, and then that's a Baron situation. That's where you see this gold lead. This game was actually very close. Until that moment, this gold lead was very close, but Conduit were decisive. They started the Baron, they won the team fight, they got the Baron, and then the gold lead just balloons to like so many digits that it's so hard to contest at that point. So you got to be careful with these mid-game moments, especially when Baron is up, especially when you're the jungler, you're the contest for threat. You got to be a little bit responsible with where you're walking. But Socks and Thighs was an absolute sight to see, and on a completely different style. I don't think he's well known for being a melee player, but tonight brings out 2 melees, deep champion pool, and seems to play aggressive no matter what.
It was so good to watch for. I'll give a lot of shout out credit though to Not So Dark. The encores in game number 2, freaking fantastic. Bring that Seraphine out once again. For right now though, we are done with the APL for this week. As we head into the next, we are headed into week number 4 and 5 afterwards. We are starting to reach the end of the regular season, so teams need to buckle up, buckle down, and get ready for what could be a grueling last 2 weeks of games. Thank you so much to everyone who did tune in this week. My name is Dorado. With me has been Jordan Bot, and huge shout out over to Caddy for our amazing production side. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in, and we'll see you all next time.